Hello, welcome to Doomed to Fail. My name is Taylor, and every week my friend Fars and I tell stories of disasters, failures, and just things that are interesting from history that we didn't know that help explain us as humans. So, when we talk about the Middle East, we're going to talk about Cyrus the Great, Iran Contra, the terrorist attacks on planes, and the Olympics in the 1970s. We're going to try to get as much context as we can around these individual things and places and stories. We have over 200 ad free episodes. It's a lot to comb through, but if you like smart history and chaotic storytelling, you're definitely in the right place. So it's a little bit frameless because it's just interesting things. So, to start framing the frameless, I'm going to tell you about it one topic at a time. And let's start with medieval history. So, traditionally, the Middle Ages is the time from the 5th century to the fall of Constantinople in 1453. And I'm also going to add a little bit into the birth of the Renaissance. So we have like 10 or so episodes that cover this time period. I'm going to link them all in the show notes so you can go each of them individually, but let me tell you about them. So, in our early medieval period, which is 500 to 1000, let's start with the Nika Riots in 532. So, in Constantinople, there was like a sports riot, basically. It started off literally two teams of horse riders in the hippodrome, the greens and the blues, and the aristocracy like the blues, and the poor people like the greens. And they just start rioting and fighting. And it ends up with the entire hippodrome, which is like their stadium, just filled with bodies and blood. And the king Justinian and his wife leave, and all these things happen. And it's the beginning of a really crazy time period. Then, obviously, I'm not hitting everything, but we're going to skip to 890 when Olga of Kiev was born. So she actually turns into a saint. She's now Saint Olga, but she was a queen in Kiev, in where Ukraine is, and she was avenging her husband's death, and she killed so many people. She tricked them into falling into pits. She drowned them. She burned them. She took all of their birds and set them on fire and sent them back to their houses. Just like real fun revenge in that one. Then let's go high medieval, 1000 to 1300, 1066. If you're in the UK, you know what this is. This is the year of the Battle of Hastings. So William the Bastard from France becomes William the Conqueror, comes in, takes over England. And while this was happening, the king is like in the north fighting Vikings, comes down, William the Conqueror comes in, all sorts of crazy things happen. So check that one out. Then, not that much longer, 1078, William the Conqueror starts building the Tower of London. Still there, not a tower, actually a big building. You can see the crown jewels, you can see the beefeaters. We'll talk about the history of the Tower of London. And then also, we have an episode about medieval executioners, right? So, racks, spikes, anything that you can think of, crazy ways to die. Check that one out as well. Then, we'll go to the late medieval period, 1300 to 1500. We have 1343 is the year Geoffrey Chaucer is born. So you'll remember Chaucer from A Knight's Tale if you're a millennial, and also from the Canterbury Tales. So learn about this author and how he got started. In 1380, so 40 years after, a man named Poggio Bracciolini is born. He's actually going to live in Italy, obviously, and what he does is finds these ancient texts, these ancient humanist texts in libraries. So we are so lucky now that, everything is printed, everything is digital, it's easy to access books and literature and history. But back then you had to go, and he would go to monasteries and sit in these libraries and these monasteries and search for things that were ancient. And they're not like the original things, it's just a copy of a copy of a copy that happened to survive. Super interesting. So learn about Poggio. Then, 1381, in England is the Peasants Revolt. So obviously it's taxes and there's the plague and everyone is, upset. And it's actually, so after the plague in Europe, peasants realized that they were worth so much more than they were being paid. And they started to revolt because of that. When they do kind of storm into London, they're going to walk through one of the northeast gates in London, and they're going to walk underneath Geoffrey Chaucer's apartment. So he is there watching this happen, which is super exciting. Then let's go to France. 1393 is the Bal des Argents. I'm so sorry, Bal des Ardents. I don't speak French, obviously, but this is the King of France, kind of a lunatic, and he has this big party, and him and his friends dress in these costumes that are basically like hay glued to their bodies and makes them very, very flammable. And I say this a lot, but we are very lucky that we don't rely on fire for our day to day needs because it is extraordinarily dangerous. So you can learn about that. 1410, in other parts of Europe, Jan Žižka, who is a Czech superhero. If you grew up in the Czech Republic, you learned about Jan Žižka for sure. He's one of the only undefeated generals in history. He did most of his fighting with one eye and eventually would be totally blinded and continue to be on the front lines. Then, the very end of this time period, 1496, on the Isle of Tenerife. So we actually talk about Tenerife, which is part of the Canary Islands outside of Spain, because one of the biggest plane disasters in world history happened there. But way before that, 1496, the Guanches were defeated by the Spanish, and they were just like a kind of a individual group of people that lived on an island, and their culture is now gone. So you can learn about them. Then the medieval to Renaissance cusp, give it like 15 more years after 1500 for this little bit of a rollover. But 1503, Nostradamus is born. Doesn't he feel more ancient than that? But he was born, all of his like predictions. Remember after 9/11, everybody was like, two brothers, both alike in dignity, you know, but that was not true. Anyway. And we'll end with 1503. The Mona Lisa was started. So when I did the episode on the Mona Lisa, I was like, yeah, it's great, but like, why do we care about it so much? And it's super interesting. It belongs to France because Leonardo died in France and he had it with him. And it's famous because it was stolen. So super exciting too. Let me go back and tell you these episode numbers, just in case you're not reading the show notes. To recap, the Nika Riots, episode 12, part 2. Then, episode 129, Mother of Sparrows, The Vengeance of Saint Olga of Kiev. Then, episode 39, I'm Alive, William the Conqueror and the Battle of Hastings. Episode 157, Beheading the Myths, The Tower of London. Episode 154, Off with Their Heads, Medieval Executioners. Episode 174, We're Men, Men in Tights, Tight Tights, Geoffrey Chaucer. Episode 125, Book Hunting in the Renaissance, Poggio, Bracciolini. Episode 172, What do you mean I can't wear drip? The Peasants Revolt. Episode 102, The Fatal Masquerade, The Bal des Ardents. Episode 22, Part 2, Check This Guy Out, Medieval General Jan Žižka. Episode 70, The People of Tenerife, The Lost Civilization of the Guanches. Episode 122, Fire and Brimstone, Nostradamus. And episode 85, Mona Lisa's Journey from Workshop to World Icon. So if you want to learn about medieval history, check those episodes out. Let us know what you think, and I will be sharing some of our themes with you as we go. If you have any questions or ideas, email us, doomedtofailpod@gmail.com, doomedtofailpod on all social media platforms except Twitter, and we have Patreon if you want to join and support us there too. We very much appreciate you, and we hope you enjoy our collection of episodes on medieval history. Thank you.